I live alone in a small apartment and work a regular office job. My routine is pretty predictable. Work, home, dinner, repeat. Since I prefer fresh ingredients, I stop by the grocery store every couple of days. There's a large supermarket just a few minutes from my place, so it's always been my go-to spot. A few months ago, I started noticing one of the employees. He was a middle-aged man, average height with graying hair and a thin frame. The first time we spoke, he was stocking shelves in the produce section. He greeted me with a polite, hello, and asked if I needed help finding anything. It seemed like normal customer service, so I just smiled and thanked him. The next few times I went shopping, I saw him again. He always seemed to be in the same area, and he always spoke to me. At first, I didn't think much of it, but over time, his questions became more personal. He asked what I did for work, if I lived nearby, and if I cooked for just myself. It was subtle, but something about it felt off. One evening, after grabbing a few things for dinner, I was heading toward the checkout when he suddenly appeared beside me. I hadn't even seen him approach. He commented on the ingredients in my basket, guessing what I might be making, and then, with an oddly eager smile, asked for my number. I laughed it off and politely declined. His smile faded instantly. He just stood there, staring at me for a few seconds before muttering, "That's too bad." Then he turned and walked away. Feeling uneasy, I quickly paid for my groceries and left. As I walked through the parking lot, I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I glanced around but didn't see anything unusual, so I brushed it off as paranoia. But as I got into my car and looked in the rearview mirror, I saw him standing just outside the store's entrance, watching me. I drove home faster than usual, constantly checking my mirrors. No one seemed to be following me, but I still felt unsettled. The next time I went shopping, I made sure to go earlier in the day, hoping he wouldn't be there. But as I walked through the aisles, I heard a voice behind me. "Hey, back again." I turned around, and there he was, smiling like nothing had ever happened. I forced a polite nod and tried to move past him, but he stepped in my way. "I was hoping I'd see you again," he said. "Thought maybe you changed your mind about giving me your number." My stomach twisted. I shook my head and muttered something about being in a hurry. He didn't say anything else, but his smile lingered as I walked away. That was the last time I saw him inside the store. But that night, something terrifying happened. I was lying in bed, scrolling on my phone, when I heard a noise outside my apartment window. It was faint, like footsteps on pavement. My heart pounded as I slowly got up and moved toward the window. I pulled the curtain aside just a little, and my blood ran cold. There, standing just beyond the dim glow of the streetlight, was the man from the store. He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't moving. He was just standing there, staring up at my window. I stepped back, my breath caught in my throat. I grabbed my phone, my fingers shaking as I dialed 911. As I did, I peeked out the window again, but he was gone. The police arrived quickly, but of course, he was nowhere to be found. I told them everything, and they assured me they'd patrol the area for the next few nights. I never went back to that supermarket, and to this day, I always wonder, how long had he been watching me before I ever noticed him? It was a regular Tuesday night, and I had stopped at my local supermarket after work to grab a few things. The store wasn't too crowded, just a handful of late-night shoppers quietly moving through the aisles. The overhead fluorescent lights flickered slightly, but that was normal. I wasn't in any rush, just browsing, picking up a few snacks, some frozen meals, nothing unusual. After about 15 minutes of wandering the aisles, I found myself near the back of the store in the home goods section. I was looking at some scented candles when I heard something strange from the next aisle over. It was a soft voice, almost whispering, but there was something off about it. I couldn't make out the exact words, so I took a step closer, pretending to be looking at something on the shelf. The voice was a man's, low and hushed, speaking to someone else. Then I heard a child's voice respond, hesitant, unsure. That's when I really started paying attention. "Your mom said it's okay," the man's voice assured. "She's up front waiting for you. Come on, I'll take you to her." A cold feeling crept over me. I peeked through the shelves, trying to see what was happening. On the other side of the aisle, a man in a dark hoodie and jeans was standing next to a little girl, no older than 6 or 7. She had her small hands clasped together, shifting on her feet nervously. The man was reaching for her hand, a forced smile on his face. Something in my gut told me this wasn't right. The girl wasn't responding the way a child would to a familiar adult. She looked uncertain, even scared. Before I had time to think, I grabbed the closest thing I could find off the shelf, a random kitchen towel, and walked around the corner. I put on a friendly smile and spoke up. "Hey, there you are. Your mom's been looking for you," I said, directing my words at the little girl. The man stiffened. His eyes darted to me, calculating. "Oh, I was just helping her find her mom," he said quickly, his smile suddenly strained. I ignored him and crouched slightly to be at the girl's level. "She's up at the front. Let's go find her together," I said gently. The girl glanced at the man, then at me, uncertain of what to do. The man's face darkened slightly. "I can take her," he insisted. "It's no problem." I didn't budge. "Nah, her mom's actually waiting right outside the customer service desk. She asked me to come find her." A tense silence stretched between us. I kept my expression casual, but inside my heart was racing. The man hesitated for a second too long before releasing a forced chuckle. "Ah, gotcha. Well, good then. Glad she's safe." Then just like that, he turned and walked off, disappearing around the corner without another word. I took the girl's hand and we walked toward the front of the store. As soon as we got there, I saw a woman frantically looking around, eyes wide with worry. The moment she spotted the girl, relief washed over her face. "Oh my God, Sarah!" the woman exclaimed, rushing forward and wrapping the girl in a tight hug. I explained what had happened as quickly as I could, watching as the mother's face shifted from relief to horror. She had only turned her back for a minute to grab something off a high shelf. She thought her daughter had been standing right beside her the whole time. Store security was called immediately. Employees checked the cameras, but by the time anyone could react, the man was already gone. Vanished. No trace of him in the parking lot. He had been watching, waiting, and when he saw the opportunity, he took it. To this day, I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't been there. I don't even want to think about it. There's something eerie about being inside a nearly empty store in the middle of the night. The fluorescent lights hum, the aisles stretch out in silence, and the few people inside seem like shadows lurking in the background. A few years ago, I worked unpredictable hours, never knowing when my shift would end. One night, just past 2 a.m., I left work exhausted and starving. The only place open was a 24-hour grocery store just off the highway. I figured I'd run in, grab a quick snack, and head home. The automatic doors slid open, and I stepped into the near-empty store. A lone cashier sat at the front, lazily scrolling through her phone. Other than that, I only saw an elderly man shuffling by the produce section and a single employee stacking shelves at the far end. I headed toward the snack aisle, my footsteps echoing against the tiled floor. As I scanned the shelves, I got this feeling. You know the one. That strange sensation that someone is watching you. I glanced down the aisle and froze. A man stood at the other end, completely still, staring straight at me. He was tall, skinny, wearing a hooded sweatshirt with the hood pulled low over his face. I couldn't make out his expression, but I could feel his gaze locked onto me. I quickly looked away, pretending to focus on a bag of chips, but my heart was pounding. Maybe he was just zoning out. Maybe I was just tired, but something about him felt wrong. Trying to shake the unease, I walked to the next aisle over. Barely a few seconds passed before I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. Slowly he rounded the corner, just enough for me to see his face peeking in my direction. I turned away and pretended not to notice, but my stomach twisted into knots. I grabbed the first thing I saw, a random energy bar, and decided I was done. I just wanted to pay and get out. As I walked toward the checkout lanes, I noticed something even stranger. The man wasn't behind me anymore. He had disappeared. The cashier barely looked up as I placed my item on the counter. I hesitated for a moment before lowering my voice. "There was a guy following me around just now," I muttered. "He was acting weird." The cashier sighed, clearly uninterested. "Yeah, people are weird at night," she replied. "You want a receipt?" I shook my head, grabbed my snack, and quickly headed for the exit. Stepping outside, I felt a little relief. The parking lot was mostly empty except for a few scattered cars. I made my way toward my car, parked a little farther than I liked. I glanced around as I walked, my nerves still on edge. Then just as I reached my car, I heard it. The sound of fast, heavy footsteps. I turned. And there he was. The man was sprinting straight at me. His hood had fallen back, revealing his pale, expressionless face. His arms pumped wildly, his body leaning forward in a full-speed chase, coming right for me. For a split second, I froze. Then instinct kicked in. I yanked open my car door, threw myself inside, and slammed the lock button just as he reached my window. He didn't stop running. He slammed his hands against the glass, his fingers splayed, his breath fogging up the window. His face was twisted in some unreadable expression. Not anger, not desperation. Just blank. I didn't wait to understand it. I jammed my keys into the ignition. The engine roared to life, and I peeled out of the parking lot so fast my tires screeched. My heart pounded in my ears as I sped down the empty street, watching in the rearview mirror. The man stood in the middle of the lot, motionless now, watching me disappear into the night. I never went back to that store again, and to this day I still wonder, what would have happened if I hadn't reached my car in time? It was just a regular trip to the grocery store. I had gone alone, like I always did. The store was open 24 hours, and I liked going late at night when it was quieter. That night was no different, or so I thought. As I pushed my cart through the aisles, I noticed him, a man. He wasn't shopping, not really. He didn't have a cart or a basket, just wandering. At first, I thought nothing of it, but after a few minutes, I realized something unsettling. Everywhere I went, he was there. At first, it seemed like coincidence. I turned down the cereal aisle. He appeared at the other end. I moved to the produce section. He lingered near the bananas, pretending to look at them. I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But then, I tested it. I went to an aisle I had no reason to be in, the hardware section, way in the back. And sure enough, just moments later, he was there, standing at the end of the aisle, pretending to browse the shelves. That's when I knew. He was following me. I felt my heart pounding, my hands gripping the cart a little tighter. I needed to leave. Now I turned the cart around and walked quickly to the checkout lanes. There were only a few other customers in the store, and the cashier looked half asleep. As I scanned my items, I could feel it, eyes on me. I turned my head slightly. There he was, standing at a self-checkout station, not scanning anything, just watching me. A chill ran down my spine. I finished as fast as I could, grabbed my bags, and headed for the exit. As I stepped outside into the parking lot, the night air felt thick, suffocating. I glanced around. The parking lot was mostly empty. My car was only a few spaces away. I walked quickly, forcing myself to stay calm. Then I heard it. Footsteps. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I knew it was him. I reached my car and fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking. The footsteps got closer. I yanked open the door, threw my bags inside, and jumped in, locking the doors in one quick motion. Just as I turned the key in the ignition, I finally looked up. He was standing just a few feet away, smiling, not saying a word, just watching. The headlights illuminated his face as I backed out of the space. His grin never wavered, his eyes locked onto mine. I didn't waste another second. I sped out of the parking lot, my heart racing, my breath shaky. I kept checking the rearview mirror the whole drive home, expecting to see headlights tailing me. But there was nothing. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I felt a little calmer. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe it was nothing. But then, my phone buzzed, a notification. From Instagram, a new follow request. I hesitated before opening it. It was a profile with no posts, no followers, just a single username. Nice seeing you tonight. I blocked the account immediately, but I never went back to that store again. I used to work at a Walmart a couple of years ago. It was a simple job, overnight stock shifts, filling shelves while the world slept. I started my shift at 9 p.m., and for the first couple of hours, the store remained open. By 11 p.m., the doors would lock and the real quiet would settle in. That was when things got strange. On this particular night, I was stocking shelves in the pet supplies aisle, way in the back of the store. The store had been closed for 30 minutes, and by now, I had my headphones in, zoning out to music while I worked. Then, out of the corner of my eye, movement. I glanced up, but whoever it was had already passed. Probably a coworker, I thought. I went back to work. A few minutes later, it happened again. But this time, when I looked, someone was standing there. A man, not a coworker. He wasn't shopping, wasn't stocking shelves. He was just there, at the end of the aisle, staring. Then before I could say anything, he turned and disappeared around the corner. A chill ran through me. I pulled out my headphones, radioed in on my walkie, and reported that someone was inside the store who shouldn't be there. The night went on. I kept working. No one found anything. Maybe I imagined it. But then, about an hour later, I had to go to the back storage room. A massive space stacked high with boxes and pallets. And that's when I saw him again. He was hiding, half crouched behind a box, tucked beneath one of the metal shelves, just watching. He was close, too close. I forced myself to act normal. Pretend I didn't see him. I turned as if I had forgotten something and started walking away. That's when I heard it, shuffling. Then, footsteps. He was following me. I didn't think. I just ran. I sprinted through the back, dodging shelves and crates, pushing forward as fast as I could. My heart was hammering in my chest. I could hear him behind me, his pace quickening. I didn't dare look back. I burst through the door and out onto the sales floor. Silence. He hadn't followed. I gasped for breath, scanning the empty store. I found Al, another overnight worker in the electronics section, and I told him everything. He hesitated but agreed to check the back with me. Maybe the guy was still there. We walked toward the storage room cautiously, pushing open the door. The second we stepped inside, we heard it. Another door opening. A metallic clank echoed through the back room. It was coming from one of the rarely used emergency exit doors. By the time we got to the end of the aisle, we saw him. The man was slipping out through the exit, the heavy door closing behind him. Then, he was gone. To this day, I don't know how he got inside. I don't know why he was there. But more than anything, I wonder, what would have happened if I hadn't noticed him watching?